Hey friend, I have a quick message for you before today's episode. Let me ask you, are you having a hard time getting your team motivated? Do they feel disengaged? And of course, as you know, you are not alone. There's many people like you facing the same problems every day. What if I told you that you can motivate your team without even trying? Well, Karen, the guest on this episode, will host an online workshop for you that tackles engagement without focusing on motivation. You can see the details at bit.ly/Karin with a K, that's KARIN_SMTP. And the link is also on the show notes. Now, I can already hear you say, what do you mean without focusing on motivation? That's a great question. One of the main reasons Agile fails or doesn't achieve the outcomes we want is because we're trying to install Agile like if it were an app on top of an outdated operating system. It's like trying to install a 3D game on top of Windows 95. The operating system on which we are trying to install Agile is the underlying management and leadership paradigm that the associated mindset that we are really blind to, that even I and maybe you are blind to. In this workshop, Karin explores a different leadership mindset and gives us the tools and exercises that will help us adopt this new operating system of sorts and overcome the need to motivate, which is really an old leadership paradigm focus, by replacing that need with a new approach, self-organization as it was meant to be. For more on that, visit bit.ly/Karin_SMTP. The link is also on the show notes. So if your vision is to develop a team or organization with highly motivated, self-driven, and responsible team members, we look forward to seeing you in this workshop and introducing a way of seeing leadership that will help you develop successful teams. You can get the details at bit.ly/Karin_SMTP. That was the announcement. Now on to the episode. Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Wednesday Leading Change episode this week with Ben Maynard. Hi Ben, welcome back.
Hi Vasco, nice to be here.
Absolutely. So Ben, today's Wednesday, we talk about change because, of course, as Scrum Masters, we are very often involved in change processes, whether it's team, individual, or organizational. So walk us through one of those change processes you were involved with and pay special attention and describe for us those tips, those tricks, those techniques you learned back then that you still apply today.
So for the record, I think that the role of Scrum Master should be integral. If an organisation is using Scrum, then they should be the people that are there, helping to lead the charge, helping to shepherd it all through. I think that Scrum Masters have a huge degree of experience and a lot of great ideas, which often don't get heard. So when I think about some of the large change efforts that I've been involved with, I think that they're really elevating the role of Scrum Master early on, making sure that they are listened and respected and are seen as the experts that people should listen to is something that I found is difficult to achieve, but incredibly effective once you do. And this means that from an organizational perspective, the Scrum Master role, at least in my opinion, should be one which is quite senior. This isn't when you're starting out on an endeavor to look at Scrum for an organization or for a product group or Agile, and you have Scrum Masters, you should get some seasoned professionals in, some people who truly understand Scrum, truly understand what it is to be a Scrum Master, reality for the teams, and have those be the guides, the servant leaders for it. So really respect the role and elevate it where possible. In my most recent Scrum Master role, I was a director in a large investment bank. I was the only Scrum Master who was a director. But what I found was, by being a senior person, by being a director, by having the heads of engineering, the product owners, the CTO, the COO as my peers, not people that I had to ask permission from, but people that I was seen as peers to, meant that I could really enact organizational change. It meant that when I was raising up impediments, when the team couldn't solve themselves and there were big systemic things which needed to be resolved, I was listened to, and I was respected, and I was able to help drive those through. So I think having the Scrum Master as a senior role and having it respected is one of the things which I've always found very, very effective.
Absolutely. And one of the things you said, of course, one of the advantages is that you are listened to because you are a peer. But of course, there's also other reasons. So from your perspective, what is the big difference when you look at Scrum Master as a role that is only like team level role, which it usually is, and a role that becomes more of an organizational change role, like you said, being a senior leader and a Scrum Master, it's typically a true innate organizational change process. So what's the big difference when that happens, when a director is also a Scrum Master?
I think it sends a very clear message to the organization that you're somewhat serious about it. I think it sets a strong example. It shows people that there is a career path and that you can still achieve kind of lofty positions in organizations if that's what you're into, and still stick at being a Scrum Master. Same should be true for programmers, software developers as well. I think that, and without wanting to go off on too much of a tangent, some of the team level Scrum Master, where you have one Scrum Master has one team or a couple of teams and is only ever looking kind of to the right at the teams and never looking left at the broader organization, comes down to a lot of the time that people look at have many Scrum teams rather than using Scrum across many teams. So you see each team you maybe are working on one software product, but you've got 10 teams, and each of those 10 teams has their own Scrum Master and their own product owner, and each of those teams may be using Scrum in isolation, but there's nothing that brings them all together. I think this is why kind of say, well, no, if we're going to use Scrum across 10 teams, then let's get people working with a single backlog. Let's have Scrum Masters looking after multiple teams. Let's elevate the role. Let's make clear that the Scrum Master has a service to the organization and that they should be a coach and guide not only to the teams, but to the product owner and to the managers as well. And putting in situations where the Scrum Master can shine when you're looking at overall systemic improvements, with the managers, with the product owners, with team representatives, to try and orient people's actions towards the broader kind of systemic improvement, is something which, when you have a senior person in the role, is so much easier to do.
I would even go further and say that if an Agile adoption is a organizational process, so it's not just the teams doing something in a specific way, it can't be that. We've had many guests exactly talking about that as being an anti-pattern, right? If we think Agile is only at the team level. But if it isn't, if it is to be an organizational level, it makes perfect sense to have the people who manage the organization be responsible, and in this case, as a Scrum Master, direct actors in that transformation.
Yeah, and I think that from my perspective, I see that managers and leaders are separate. I think managers are responsible for the capability of the organization, its structures, roles, and processes, and that the Scrum Master is responsible for helping them make increasingly better decisions, and maybe not making the decisions, but being involved in the process and agitating and guiding and educating where necessary.
Absolutely. When I think about, for example, getting teams to work together, or even as one case, I don't recall which guest it was, but it was an organization where they had teams that were set up for specific business goals every quarter. And if you can do that, it's because you probably have some sort of status and power within the organization, right? If a bunch of Scrum Masters see that as an opportunity and bring it up to management isn't necessarily motivated to look at it because they're measured on different things. But if management is measured on the overall delivery of all of the teams, in this case in a department, for example, then they are motivated to work on what you call the systemic aspects of Agile adoption, right? Because we can look at Agile adoption at the team level, even at the individual level, but we also need to look at it at the organizational level.
Yeah, Absolutely. I think what I've always found is, the fewer queues that are present, the fewer roles, the less policy you have process, the more it orients people to making those bigger decisions. But if we think back to short-term cause and effect, I think one of the biggest challenges of being a Scrum Master in that type of situation when looking at organizational change is helping people balance the short, medium, and long-term cause and effect. Because if it's something which Peter Senge, I'm sure I pronounced his name incorrectly there, said in one of his videos, which was, if the solutions to your problems are obvious, you'd already be doing them. So you have to accept that the solution, the real kind of game-changing improvements you need to make are non-obvious. And you have to accept that if you haven't got them, then you're part of the system. You're part of the problem too. And I think for a Scrum Master to come and help be that voice of that outside voice to help people see that cause and effect and help people balance the short, medium, long term and help find the non-obvious solutions and ideas is a huge service that the Scrum Master can play in organizational change. I'm not discounting Agile coaches within this as well, because I think often Agile coaches could probably be fantastic Scrum Masters, but our community, our industry has not valued financially, I think, the role of Scrum Master as much of Agile coach, and I think that's why we perhaps see less truly long-lived, experienced Agile coaches.
Absolutely. That would be the topic for a whole nother episode. Ben, thank you for introducing that perspective. I think you did it in a very clear way with lots of tips for us to take home and reflect on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role, we'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.